Hi, it's Steve. Today we're going to show you how to change the thermistor on your dryer, and it's a really easy job. All we're going to need is a Phillips screwdriver. Let me show you how we do it. Now before we begin this repair, the first thing we'll need to do is to disconnect power to the dryer. So if it has a cord on it, simply unplug it, or if it's a hardwired dryer, locate the fuse or breaker panel and turn the power off there. We'll next want to pull that dryer out far enough that we can access two screws that secure the top to the cabinet. And we'll remove those two screws and then just slide that top back about ½ inch and then lift it off and set it aside. Now our next step will be to remove two screws at the very top that secure the brackets that hold the control panel in place. Then lift the control panel up, tilt it back out of the way, and then we'll remove the two top ones. We'll have to hold that panel up against the cabinet so that it doesn't become dislodged. Now our next step will be to open the door. We're going to remove these two screws just below the lint filter. Then we'll also remove two screws at the very bottom that secure the bottom of the front panel. And next we'll disconnect this 2-wire harness to the door switch, and we'll also remove a single black wire that is attached to the light bulb. And then we can remove the top two screws securing that front panel to the cabinet. And we'll want to support that whole assembly as we do that. Now with all the screws removed, we're next just going to lift up on that front panel to disengage 4 clips that hold it into the cabinet. Then we'll turn it around so that we can access the door catch. Now next we'll need to remove this front bulkhead, and to do so we'll want to either detach that zip tie that holds the wire harness to it, or cut it and replace it. It looks like there's lots of room to remove this one, so we're just going to take a thin flat blade screwdriver. We're going to release that catch and we'll pull it off. We'll next remove that single white wire from the light bulb, and then disconnect the 2 harness connectors by first releasing the locking tabs and then pulling them apart. And then we'll set the console aside. Now next we'll remove 2 screws that secure this support bracket from the back to the front, and then just lift the little metal tabs out of the slots. And then we'll remove 2 Phillips screws on the bottom, and then we'll just lift that front bulkhead away from the drum. You may need to just lift up on the drum enough to release it. And then we'll set that aside. Now with that front bulkhead removed, we now have access to the thermistor. So before we remove it from the blower housing, we'll remove the wires first. They may be a little snug, so use your needle nose pliers. And then remove the 2 retaining screws. Discard the old thermistor. We'll set our new one in place. Tighten those screws securely, and we'll reattach the wires and make sure they fit on nice and snug, and if not, just crimp them with the needle nose pliers. Now we're ready to put the bulkhead back on. Now when installing the front bulkhead, we'll want to make sure that we tuck those 2 front rollers in underneath the drum, so we'll have to lift up on the drum as we're installing that. And also you'll note that there are a couple of tabs at the bottom of these top flanges, and they will fit into these uppermost rectangular holes, and that will hold that in place until we can get some screws on it. So drop the bottom right hand side in first so that it's up against the blower housing. Lift up on the drum just enough that the wheels will clear. And then lift the whole assembly up, hook those tabs in. Feel around, make sure that that felt stayed in place. And you should be able to rotate the drum while holding it on the bottom of that. There, we know everything's free there now. So next we'll put the two bottom retaining screws in. And next we'll reposition this support, line it up with those openings, make sure the two tabs fit down into the slots, and then install the two retaining screws. Now next we'll put the control panel back in position. So we'll just lay that across the top of the drum first. We'll reconnect the wire harnesses, making sure that the locking tabs engage on those. And we'll also reinstall that zip tie to hold those harnesses in place. Now if you cut the original one, you'll need to install a new one there. We can reattach the white wire to the rear terminal on that light bulb. Make sure it fits nice and tight. And then we're ready to put the front panel on. Now when reinstalling the front panel, we'll want to make sure that we line up these four fasteners, two on the bottom, two on the top, with these rectangular holes in the edge of the side panels. And that will, they have a little hook on them, so that will hold them in place until we put the retaining screws in. At the same time, we're going to hold up on that harness so that it doesn't get jammed in the door opening. So we'll next reconnect that black wire to the light bulb and the two wire harness to the door switch. Make sure the locking tabs engage. We can install the two upper screws. Now we'll drop the control panel down into position, and you'll note that there are three locator tabs that line up with these rectangular holes. So make sure they're engaged and push it back into position, and then we'll install the two retaining screws on the top. Now next we'll install the two screws on the bottom of the front panel. And now we'll put the main top back on. Now when installing the top, we want to make sure that we line up these slotted openings with tabs across the top of the console. So set it down about a ½ an inch back from the console and carefully slide it forward, making sure that those tabs engage. And then install the two retaining screws at the back. We're now ready to reconnect the power, and our repair is complete.